Welcome back to the Weekly Buzz. I'm your host today. My name is John Wesley Borders. I'm a freshman here at the college, and today we'll be talking about how to manage your time. And I would like to introduce everybody who else is here. So I'd like to start with you.
Mike Vanderpool. I'm the Assistant Professor of Graphic Design.
I'm Jordan Gehring. I'm the Director of the Academic Support Center.
I'm KB, a fifth year.
I'm Favor. I'm a sophomore.
All right. So I'm going to recap on the last the last 4 weeks we've been talking about. The first week we talked about how to build a community and how to bring everybody together. And I think we've been doing a really good job with that, quite honestly. And then week two, respecting yourself and other people. I feel like that's a big thing because if you want respect from somebody, you got to gain that through other people and yourself. And then third week is integrity. Integrity is something you just keep to yourself and something you build off of. And then respect, it was week 4. Responsibility, my apology. Responsibility was week 4. Responsibility is managing yourself and making the right decisions, knowing right from wrong. All right. So, we got somebody new on the show today. So I would like to interview you and know who you are. So, what department are you in?
Graphic Design.
Graphic design. I wanted to do the graphic design when I got here.
It's the best program on campus, just so you know.
It's not bad.
Oh, thank you. It's not bad. That's like a
Not
massive
bad.
compliment, dude.
What a great compliment.
Yes, thank you.
It's actually, it's more better than all my other classes I take, because I take all science classes, so it's not bad, and it's more slow paced, so you ain't got to rush through everything or learn anything very hard.
All right.
It is a 100 level class.
100 level class.
Yeah. It's like the second class you take in the program. So
Okay.
Training wheels are still on for that one.
All right. Where did you go to college at? Like, where did you get your degree from?
So my associate's is from Monroe County Community College.
Okay.
Took me 8 years to get through that. Then I got an English degree from Oakland University up in Rochester Hills, Michigan. Go Grizzlies.
English. I'm
English,
hearing
yeah,
your English, yes.
We won't talk about English. And then, long story short, went to Florida for a while, did some entrepreneurial business type stuff. Came back to Michigan/Ohio in about 2008. Went to Bowling Green State University, got my master's in instructional design, learning design and technology. And that got me to now, kind of, sort of.
All right. Well, I'm glad you made it to Defiance. All right. So we're going to talk about the tips for managing time. I feel like, so the number one thing is learn to set boundaries. When you set boundaries for yourself, you have a mission and you have and you learn to accomplish something. Does anybody else want to build on that?
On top of like setting boundaries, it's like being realistic with yourself on knowing what you can and can't do, and don't overburden yourself with a whole bunch of things if you know you'll be burnt out and tired at the end of it.
What about you, Miss Jordan? Would you like to build on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we talk about kind of setting these boundaries, managing our time, I think it's important that we pay attention to the fact that things aren't always going to go as planned, right?
Yeah. The other tip that we want to talk about is to be clear. I feel like when you're clear with yourself and you set that boundary and you know you can do it, it's more of the fact now you just got to execute it. That's my opinion on it. Would anybody else like to elaborate on that?
I don't think when you say boundaries, do you mean like just like with yourself? Because I think boundaries can be made with other people too.
It could be made with other people.
In order to,
Absolutely.
like, achieve those goals and manage that time.
Yeah, so what do those boundaries look like when you're working with other people? What does that look like for you?
Like, maybe they're wanting to hang out, after class or something like that. And you're like, no, after class I take this time to study, do whatever, and then maybe after that we can go and do something.
Right, so still allowing yourself
Yeah.
that space of like,
Yeah.
I'll absolutely do something with you, but
Exactly.
right now I need this
Yeah, putting
time,
your
right?
priorities first.
Yeah, absolutely.
In all honesty, is me learning how to say no, because I agree to a lot of things and I don't know what I'm getting myself into. So learning how to say no is one of the boundaries I'm starting to be clear about.
Honestly, to elaborate on that, I feel like in high school, I didn't really know how to say no either. But I knew when I got to college, I was going to have to start saying no to some things because I know, like, when you, like, it's like when you first start high school, like, your parents always tell you to run with the right crowds, don't get caught up in the mess, try to stay with the right crowds. But it's even more of a bigger deal when you get to college because, you, I mean, you can be friends with a person and y'all can set boundaries, but at the end of the day, that person can still break those boundaries or do something that's not comfortable towards you. So I feel like the big thing with that is you just gotta know how to say no. So I do agree with KB on that.
And being strong in that, right? Of knowing your priority, why you're setting that time for yourself, right? And being able to explain the why, I think, is important. I do just want to make a plug for me personally. So I am an academic coach on campus, as well as Lisa Crum at Hancock. One of the conversations we can have with students is how to say no, right? Because that is such a hard thing for students to learn, that you guys are kind of navigating right now, is how to have that conversation with people. And so for anyone listening, or for those of you around the table, if that's a valuable conversation to have, I'm always happy to kind of have that with you, because it is hard sometimes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, some more tips on managing your time is using time management tools like Google Calendar or like notebook planner and stuff like that. Some ways that I would manage my time wisely is Google Calendar. So like all my classes and my meetings and stuff are in there, but sometimes you make it too hectic, so you have to put like your homework in a different one. So
I live off my Google Calendar.
what about you?
I heavily use alarms. Does that count?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I set alarms for my classes, and I always set them to like give myself time after and before classes. Like I rely on my alarms to wake up because I don't have a snooze button. So if I go back to sleep, I'm not getting back up. So, and then it just like when I add like songs that I like to my alarms, it makes me like feel better about getting up. So yeah, I use them heavy.
Good.
Definitely.
Hey, it's a strategy and whatever works, right?
Whatever works for sure. That
Alarms for sure are amazing because getting up for like 7:15 lifts and we have to be there like 15 minutes early. I have one from 6 a.m. all the way to 6:45 and 7.
I'm not gonna lie, they make us get up at 5 o'clock, and half of the time I don't get up at 5 o'clock. I get up at 4:30, cause it's just the fact that you just want to be up and you want to be moving. And then on top of that, our coach wants us to be there 15 minutes early as well. We have to be there by 5:45, or essentially we're late, because lift starts at 6. So, yeah.
What else? We probably have to be there 30 minutes early because you have to be on the line at
Yeah, that's
15 minutes early.
We gotta be
So you got to be there earlier than what you have to be there.
Does anyone use an alarm or set alarms for assignments and due dates and things like that? Or do we rely a lot on our Google Calendars and stuff?
Google Calendar has a 30 minutes before it's done. It needs to be turned in, and a 10-minute one. So when a 10-minute mark hit, that's when it's crunch time.
Oh.
Yeah, no, for real.
Okay. All right. So is that managing our time if we're getting down to crunch time?
Because the best work is done when it's almost due.
Okay. All right. So when you're in that space, do you feel like you're doing your best work, putting your best foot forward?
I mean, yes, because when you're sitting there and trying to get it done early, you have a whole bunch of brain farts and don't know what you want to write or talk about. But when you're sitting right there in the moment and it's due, a whole bunch of ideas come to your head, so you are able to write it down, and then you could just, what is that thing called when it breeze over your work? I think it's Grammarly. You just put it in Grammarly and check and see if it's all right and if it's spelled right, and then you just turn it in.
I use Grammarly.
Grammarly is a great tool, absolutely. So I do hear that a lot from students about wanting to try to wait until the last minute and feeling like they're being the most productive in that moment of time, right? Because they're in that crunch time. However, sometimes when I pry a little bit deeper into what students are feeling, a lot of the time students talk about how they don't feel like it's necessarily the best thing that they've put forth, right? Regardless of whatever grade that they're earning on the assignment. And my bigger concern that I have when I talk to students about it is that a lot of the time they don't feel like they're retaining the information that they're learning from the assignment, right?
That's true.
Which is kind of the bigger concern is like, it's great if you got it done and you got the A, But ultimately, we're in college because we're trying to learn for the next 40 years, right? And that career that we're trying to build, right? So when you're in those moments, do you feel like a week after the assignment, 2 weeks after the assignment, do you feel like you've like really learned the information? And I'm asking like genuinely.
Probably not.
Okay.
You'll have to go back and read it and figure it out again.
Okay, so you're finding that you still have to go back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that there is an art to procrastination. As a procrastinator myself, I understand that about me, but I've also developed a art/framework around it. So the worst thing I've ever done is inside of my career, I've had some work to do for a client, and I've got a month to do it, and it's a day before it's due. And I open it up and I go to access like the documents they provided to me, and they're either not there or I have to request access because it's Google Drive or something like that. Now they know I'm trying to charge them thousands of dollars for a project, right? And they know I didn't open it up until the last minute. So one of the things that I like to do as this framework for procrastination is when you get your assignment, get your project, whatever you have to do, go through and look at it and check it out. Make sure you click all the links, you have access to everything that you need. Review what you're supposed to do, and then it's fine to let that sit and ferment in your brain. Because if it's placed in there, as you experience life, experience other classes, sit through class, your brain will do that stuff in the background. And when you do finally sit down to work on it an hour before it's due, you almost have the whole thing already formulated, or at least some start to it, right? You're not starting from scratch there, you're actually kind of ramping up into it.
That is sometimes you need to sit down with it, read over it, get that idea of what it's about, and then sit with it for a minute. And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah,
Or
it's
even-
not bad. But I would say like when a professor is finally giving you something, you open up in class and you're like, yeah, that's too many words, and then you just close back out of it. But then you'll go back a few days later and you be like, oh, okay, I know what to do. But then you just wait because you already know what you got in mind, what you want to say, so you just wait until the last minute just to get it out the way. And still get a good grade on it.
I would challenge you to, if you get into that point where you're like, I already know what I want to say. Do you find that it's just like sitting in your brain for a long time, right?
No, because you forget about it until you go and put it on the thing again.
All right. So I would challenge you if you get to a point where you feel like you know what you want to say, but it's just like sitting in your brain, right? And it's taking up space. Getting it done, turned in and out of the way can like free up some of that brain power so that you can focus it into other things. So again, just in that situation where if you feel like it's just sitting there, you just have to get it out, right? That would be my advice. But
The other thing too with the procrastination/review part of what you're doing, I think it gives you an opportunity to again lean into your calendar, maybe break some stuff out. Like this is due in 2 weeks. Okay, but how many practices do I have? How many games do I have? How many family other responsibilities do I have, right? Leaning into your calendar and really just trying to plan out a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead can remove some of the stress that I know I have from trying to juggle work, life, play, family.
how far in advance do you guys typically look out on your calendar?
It should really just depend.
I'd assume for athletes it's like the next opponent, right? Like it's kind of built into that framework.
Were you about to?
Yeah, it was like when it gets closer to like long weekends or like time that you can get away, go back. Like I'm definitely looking ahead like 2-3 weeks in advance or however long that is. Like I was looking at the October and November dates already, so like time like that, like when you're away from home, you don't get to see your family as much. Like you definitely want to look out for those dates and plan ahead. Definitely.
So what all do I need to get done until I reach that goal of going home for that vacation, things like that?
Something I would say is probably I look for the end goal. So like if we got a final presentation or a paper, I'm looking for that first just to see how much I got to do and how long it's going to take me to get it done.
Yeah, make a plan. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say for me, so for school, I look pretty deep into content. Maybe a week or two ahead, because I like talking to my parents, because both of my parents went to college. Like my mom has her master's, my dad has his 4-year degree. They tell me the big thing is if you get ahead in college and assignments, it's easy to keep up, but once you fall behind, it's hard to come back from. So the big thing with that is I feel like just using my parents' advice and just working ahead is a good thing for me and for sports just in general. Yeah, like you said, maybe just the next opponent or just like when I have practice or something like that. Just in case of like an emergency meeting, position meeting. It just depends.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to talk to students about, this is a very common conversation that I have with students about time management and things. So one of the things I like to bring up to students is taking Sundays to just kind of look ahead at what the week is going to bring, right? Of what assignments do we have due for that week, and kind of just map out that plan. Because like how we talked about before, sometimes unexpected things pop up and happen, right? So we can take a little bit of time over the weekend to look ahead and see kind of what can we expect? Where do I have a little bit of that free time and that flexibility? Where can I fit in some of that studying, right? It can be beneficial sometimes to do that. So yeah, I know. Hopefully
I
that's
do that.
helpful. You do that?
I do that
Perfect.
because like
Nice.
I have a busy schedule this year, so like I'm like always looking ahead, like it's gonna be a hard week next week. You know, like
Yeah.
I gotta prepare myself mentally for that. So
Absolutely.
I definitely do that.
I know for myself and for other people I've talked to who, for a long time, I didn't live by a calendar. Kind of just did what needed to be done or what was on fire, right?
I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And that works for people, right? And sometimes it's like, well, I want the freedom to be able to do what I want when I want. Okay, I get that, but you have responsibilities, and as you get older, you're going to get more responsibilities.
Yeah.
So now, for me, I'm finding that by being very protective of my time, I actually have more freedom to do what I want because I am using the calendar to say no, looking at my priorities and saying no.
Absolutely. And time management is a very individual process, I think, is kind of what we're learning. We all kind of come at it from a different perspective. And I think that it's important to like learn how other people are doing things so we can decide which works best for us, right? Absolutely.
So the last thing we're going to give you guys are tips on what to do when you feel overwhelmed. So for number 1 is to break your tasks into smaller steps, as well as use your campus resources and seek support when needed. 3, practice self-care. 4, do not disconnect or avoid. And 5, be adaptable when things don't go as planned. All right, guys, that's all the time we have today. Hope you guys have a good week and see you again next time.